ברוכים הבאים לפודקאסט של שפות-שלי, בית ספר לאנגלית ושפות נוספות. אני האריאל, welcome to the show.
Hello.
And today I'm actually with a new guest. You guys, new old guest.
Yeah.
You guys definitely know. And Josh, welcome back.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Good to have you on the show again. And today we're going to have an interesting topic.
Yeah.
Just for our listeners that don't know, that are listening to us for the first time, Josh, he's an amazing content creator for the school, one of our top teachers.
Thank you.
He does an amazing work here. And he is joining us for this episode today. So I'm feeling very stoked.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited.
Me too.
And we are basically a language school.
Yeah.
It's based in Netanya.
Yeah.
Right between the river and the sea.
Oh God.
So that is going to be our... we're going to talk today, אנחנו נדבר קצת היום על דיאלוג אונליין, יותר לקחת את זה לכיוון של גם הסברה, אבל גם לכיוון של בעסקים, ביום יום. אתם יכולים לראות, אנחנו ננסה לדבר כמה שיותר באנגלית, because you guys are here to listen to English.
Yeah.
ואנחנו ננסה לדבר כמה שיותר באנגלית. So, אולי אני אזרוק קצת עברית, אם יש איזו מילה קשה שג'וש יגיד פה ושם.
Well, what did you say first of all? You said something funny, from the river to the sea. Muzzle enough.
That means that שאנחנו בין הנהר לים.
And where do we hear that a lot these days?
We hear that in a lot of pro-Palestinian protests.
Protests. Oh, there's a lot. Yeah, there are a lot of
Hafganot.
Hafganot protests
Worldwide, which are generally, trying to paint Israel in different lights. We're not going to get into too much.
Yeah, we don't have to get into the
politics.
But there's something interesting I've noticed over the past, since the whole situation started, this whole war, I've noticed that many of my students just want to talk about the current conflict. It seems that every Israeli that is practicing English in their mind is kind of, practicing their own dialogue, having an imaginary argument with someone that is giving counterpoints, counter opinions to what they see online, or to basically what they see online, right? And
hold on, wow, that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
אתה מרגיש את זה, אתה רואה את זה בשיעורים שם? שהרבה תלמידים רוצים לדבר על the situation and counter argument.
Yeah, I mean, now things have kind of died down. But the first 2 weeks, students, that was all that my students were really be able to talk about. They were really able to talk about only like the situation,
The trauma.
The trauma. But then the trauma eventually it shifted from it talking about just the trauma to like their frustration and their desire to, explain to the world or talk to the world or have conversations with people online and be heard. Yeah. And so this is something, I've been, even as a child, I've always been online and on YouTube and stuff. So first of all, what they call it online is, it's called the flame war. I don't know if you know what this is, but a flame war, milchamat esh.
Okay.
Now, flame war is basically when people online argue over a big topic. Something controversial happens and you have two sides that are spending a lot of their time online in comment sections arguing, trolling. מה זה trolling בעצם?
trolling זה סוג של להשפיץ, סוג של השפלה אונליין. זה כמו ספאם, when the spam ימצקים לך בצורה ספאמית מאוד.
Yeah, but it's and you can be like, you can also, there trolls people that take the opposite side to make them look bad, right? לקחת את הצד השני כדי להראות להם.
אתה יודע מה, הרבה אנשים מפורסמים, or afraid, לקחת עמדה.
Yeah.
I'll give an example that לפחות לילדים שלי, were like pretty upset about it.
Yeah.
אם אתה תיקח דוגמה של ליאו מסי, בוא נגיד, אז ליאו מסי הוא ארגנטינאי, כמובן, אוקיי? לליאו מסי יש אזרחים שהם חטופים בעזה.
כן.
And he's not saying a word either way. Okay? He's saying, he's not pro-Palestine or pro-Hamas. He's not pro-Israel. He's not, but at least for the hostages' sake, he could have taken a stance and maybe said, okay, release the hostages and let's have a ceasefire or whatever it is. Like a lot of celebrities who were on the fence have spoken out about.
Yeah.
That's without getting into the politics. Let's leave politics out of it.
No, yeah. So anyways, though, the big thing...
Hold on, sorry. But what I'm trying to say is about that's... I think they're doing it because, like you're saying, the trolling aspect.
Oh, yeah,
trolling. Yeah. And also the aspect of, it's not just the trolling, it's that your income can get impacted. People don't want your position, your job, your sponsorships, if you're really famous. But even people in regular positions, in regular jobs, sometimes their tweets have been uncovered years back, okay, and all of a sudden they find themselves getting fired. אז תזהרו מאוד מה אתם כותבים אונליין, במיוחד בטוויטר, שקוראים לזה היום X. תשתמשו את זה ממש כ-X, כאילו, תזהרו מאוד, כי לפעמים גם מעסיקים, גם ארגונים, יכולים, יהיה אולי עוד 10 שנים, מה שנורמלי היום, אולי עוד 20 שנה יראה משהו הזוי לגמרי, לדוגמה לשבת כאן, לעשות פודקאסט עם אמריקאי, being like totally like no, totally wrong, and I'll be like, Josh is great, he's American, and באמריקאים יצאו עוד 20 שנה like neo-Nazis, the worst of the worst, and then I'll get fired. So we don't want to be careful what you share online.
Yeah, be careful with what you. But anyways, you know, I have many students that oftentimes will tell me that they got in a comment war. They took part in the flame war. They argued online, and most of the time it just turns into, you know, people cursing each other and practicing, you know, saying mean things, which I suppose is like that's part of it. But there is an aspect also where people have an actual try to have a real debate.
That is the worst thing ever. What you just specified for people who are scrolling and want to get into the debate, because I've seen it happen a lot of times online. Exactly what you're describing. Where there's a comment, counter comment, and then it gets dirty. Then you just stop reading the rest of it. It's pointless. And there's a mashmot if you're going to get in now what you're saying a flame war. Okay. What does have mashmot is if you're able to make the other side think. Okay, I'm going to leave it to you to explain.
So this is the thing, right? Is most of the time, especially during these situations when there's a real flare up and there's a lot happening on the news, people are very much set in their ways, right? So when you go to this, let's say, battlefield of the comment section or wherever, you're not going to convince anyone or get someone to do a 180-degree change in their opinion, right? So what I like to compare this to is people that go to a boxing gym to fight, right? So you like to fight, you like to box or whatever. So you go to a boxing gym and you practice with people, right? You fight, and you're not fighting for it's not a serious game, but you're learning how other people fight. You're learning about how you fight, and you're getting better. And that's the purpose of engaging in real dialogue online, for the very least, right? It's to be able to cause yourself to think and understand your narrative as well as the other narrative as well, and hopefully cause the other person to think as well. But you obviously can't control that. So this technique that I've sort of developed and I'm still developing is basically called giving the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
What does it mean, the benefit of the doubt?
לתת למישהו את לחשוב טוב מראש, I would say.
את היתרון של הספק.
לא להטיל ספק במה שהבן אדם אומר, כאילו.
Yeah. So basically this is often what happens, especially when we're talking specifically about, you know, the conflict that we're in. People often will go back into a history lesson. It's a history discussion, right? Where and then it becomes a debate. Well, they said this, and then they said this. And there's not really even any point in that, right? Maybe there's some interesting historical facts that are unknown that may add spice to an argument. But the point is that you're going to waste your time. You're wasting everyone's time. What you should do instead is give the other side the benefit of the doubt. And by saying that, you either can say superficially and admit that it's not actually how you feel, or, I mean, if you really want to like play stupid and this is kind of trolling, act like you don't know anything, right? But you basically make the other party know that they're right? You're right. Whatever you say is right. I want to know more. Tell me more about it, right? And you let the other party explain their side. So now they've been able to lay everything out, right? The ball's in their court.
All right. So we talked a little bit about before we started recording today.
Yeah.
We spoke a little bit of an example of something like that.
Yes.
An example would be if someone is saying, okay, that's free, like the famous song that's going around in protest, free Palestine from the river to the sea, which I'm not sure the protesters actually know the meaning of that for what they're trying to say. I mean, that basically means eradicate Israeli people.
Well, they think they know what it means, right? So in the context of this discussion, of this debate, right? Okay. Even though hearing and seeing those things can be very emotionally provocative for an Israeli or for someone that cares about Israel, you know, give them the benefit of the doubt, right? At the very least, say that they're naive and that they don't understand, right? So you would talk to them and you say, yeah, I agree with you, right? in that sense where everyone should be equal. Now, what you personally feel about something, whether or not everyone should be equal, is your prerogative, right? But for the sake of the argument, take this side, right?
So you would say
they're very, very naive, that they want equal rights for everyone, that they like freedom. They like these principles that at face value sound very good, right? So you could take it at face value, and then you need to expand upon it. And so I like that, right? But what about Jews that live there? Do they get to be free too? Are they included in do you have a platform for your government that you're proposing, right? And
right. What would you do with the Israeli state?
What would you do with Israelis, right? And that's the thing, is they don't have people that are interested in having real debate and are invested in this conflict at an intellectual level for the most part. And what does it mean to be invested at an intellectual level? It means that you are spending a lot of time reading up on this. You feel an emotional connection. Maybe you have friends on one side or the other, right? They want to be on the right side of history. We want to be on the right side of history. This is a war of narratives, right? And for me, this is more, there's a subjective and objective, which is an entirely different discussion. But for the basic matter is that someone that's having a conversation with the other side, clearly there's some sort of recognition. They see the humanity in it, right? So now you've given them the platform. They've expressed what they want. You've agreed. Whether or not you actually believe it, you're agreeing for the sake of agreeing to be able to unravel the conversation. Now, then you let them give you details, and you're gonna most of the time.
And pick those details.
Well, and you don't need to necessarily pick them apart. You just ask them about it and listen to the silence, because there are a lot of answers that no one has on that side of the narrative. For many reasons.
As much as I just want to say this in Hebrew quickly, just to make sure we're not being misunderstood.
כן, זה חשוב.
So, מה שג'וש פה מתאר זה בעצם, אם יש לכם איזה ויכוח או מישהו אונליין, במיוחד בנושא רגיש כמו שקורה כרגע בהסברה בינלאומית, אז לפעמים לבוא מישהו אומר, free Palestine from the river to the sea, ואז אתם יכולים להיכנס לסוג של ויכוח, להגיד, אבל לא, זה לא נכון, אנחנו מגנים על עצמנו, חמאס מחבלים, אנחנו מספקים להם מזון לאוכלוסייה האזרחית, אנחנו מנסים לא להרוג אזרחים, ואז הצד השני יכול להגיד, אבל כן הורגים אזרחים, וכן יש תמונות, זה אין סוף של ויכוחים, and we call that mudslinging, let's say, לזרוק להם בוץ אחד על השני, ובעצם אתם לא תשיגו שום דבר. מה שג'וש אומר, this is very smart, I like this. מה שג'וש אומר בעצם, הוא אומר, מישהו אומר לכם משפט מסוים, אתם יכולים להגיד לו, תשמע, אין בעיה, אתה רוצה לשחרר את פלסטין מהנהר לים, אז מה אם בעצם עם מדינת ישראל היום, שקיימה התוכנית שלך לעם היהודי שחי שם, למדינה שקיימת שם, כאילו, מה איתם? ואתה בעצם שואל שאלות, לקבל, בוא נגיד שהתוכנית שלך היא ישימה. It sounds good, יש לך כוונות טובות, כי אתה רוצה לשחרר עם דקוי, בוא נגיד שאתה בא ואתה רוצה לשחרר עם דקוי, אז בוא בעצם נשחרר אז מה הפתרון שלך למדינת ישראל שגרה פה? And then see the way they react and actually make them think a little bit about their own opinion. They're going to not show על הדעה שלהם.
So, there's one thing that I'm very familiar with, because I lived in the West, I lived in America, I was very familiar. I had a lot of interpersonal relationships in university with Arab Americans, Muslim Americans, and, as well as the whole crowd that's more pro-Palestinian as a whole. And what I think is primarily the case is that there's a very big disconnect between secular people in America and Arab Americans who are secular, between what they ideologically support and believe in and what the reality is on the ground, right? There's just a disconnect. You can say it even to a lesser extent, but with Jews in Israel versus Jews in America, there's a disconnect in many
massive.
It's massive, but in different ways, right? So, the values of Arab Americans who are very, very secular and liberal may not be the same as the values of Hamas, right? Yeah. Or even it's more nuanced than that. But if you want to just use it as a catch-all, then sure. But anyways, you had an idea before. What did you want to say?
Okay, so what I want to try to give an example of a counter argument, maybe that we can bring in. You can see, for example, that right now in, let's say, any pro-Palestine, let's say, protests or anything like that, it's been construed as pure anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
okay, because of the sheer scale of what's the West End. Because generally, let's say the Palestinian cause is not being, the Arab world is not sympathetic really to let's say the Palestinian cause. In other words,
to the Palestinian or to the Jewish?
To the Palestinian cause, I would say, because they're not willing to in any way receive them into their own countries, equal necessary as refugees. They're closing doors on them pretty aggressively, especially Egypt. Even momentarily, let's say, as a ceasefire, open the gates, tell them, okay, we'll take them in momentarily till the solution can be found or bring them home back to the homeland, but even on a momentary basis. And my argument in this, my question in this is that sometimes that if you see like the amount of when Arabs are killing Arabs, for example, and there's hundreds of thousands being killed, like in Syria, there's no real global protests going on, okay? But as soon as the Jews are involved or Israel is involved, there's a massive, massive outcry on it, which is disproportionate to the amount of people that are being killed by Arabs amongst Arabs worldwide, okay?
Okay.
So my question is to you is that, do you think the underlying cause, I would say, let's say if I was now running a narrative, okay, and I had to make an online quote, I would say that at the moment, it's pretty easy to construe that any pro-Palestinian massive en masse protest is actually just pure anti-Semitism, okay? Because right now they're going and say, okay, when the Jews do it, no, it's a big no.
Okay.
How would you counter?
So let's give it. This is a perfect example. So, and this doesn't necessarily represent my actual opinion on this, but I think things are a bit more nuanced. But for the sake of explaining this, right? So I'm going to take your side of the argument and say I agree. So you're right. There is let's say that the majority of the protests that are pro-Palestinian are maybe a dog whistle for anti-Semitism, right? Or are anti-Semitic, okay, in general. However, I think you should look at the fact, I mean, this has been spoken about too, is that there are many Jews in those protests too. There are a lot of people, there's the whole sect of religious Jews that are super pro one side, but there's also secular Jews, right, that are like, in some ways, maybe virtue signaling or, coming there as an item, as an object to say, look at me, I'm Jewish.
Actually, I actually saw that in Congress.
Yeah.
It was a big
300 Jews, right? Yeah. So then I think the discussion would be, well, then I think because,
Jews not be anti-Semitic?
Well, Jews can definitely be anti-Semitic, but we have to create a measuring stick for this, right? If you want to talk about anti-Semitism, because it definitely exists, and we're going to take your side of the argument and say that they're entirely anti-Semitic, but we now need to acknowledge the fact that, we know about Nazis. That's our perfect measuring stick as like an absolute 10 of anti-Semitism, right?
Okay.
And to be truthful, there wasn't really any public demonstrating cooperation between Jews and Nazis in Germany in the 1930s. You didn't see any sort of working together even on a political level. I mean, there's some small instances.
What they were something called the Sunday Commandos, they're called, I believe, where the Germans actually used Jews to bring in to recruit.
Yes, but these were in the actual camps. We're talking about just political action and political explanation, right? So like it's to that. If it was the case where this was violent, then maybe so. But even then, right? The fact is that currently. At these events, they're very much mixed, and the people who are Jews, they're not being attacked. So therefore, while you're right, while again, I'm going to take your position, say you're right about the anti-Semitism, you would have to discern or at least express to what extent it is anti-Semitic, because it's not the same. I mean, clearly, if it was as violent as it was on October 7th, then any Jew who any Jew who goes to a protest and supports Palestine and is openly Jewish would immediately be killed, right? Because the anti-Semitic.
Okay, so I want to say something about it. So I'm not going to go into the because now it's
this is just
but the point of view,
listeners, it's not what I actually think. It's just for the sake of the argument.
זה דוגמה מעולה מה שג'וש כרגע עשה, כי בעצם אני נתתי דוגמה כאילו מסוימת, אפשר לבקח את זה מצד אחד. הוא הביא פה שנייה צורה לחשוב ולהגיד, אוקיי, אבל יש פה משהו מאוד מסוים שקורה. שגורם לך שאני לחשוב, הוא כאילו זורם עם הדעה שלי בעצם, הוא אומר, אוקיי, אני זורם עם הדעה שלך, אבל אם הדעה שלך היא נכונה, אם מנהל את שלך נכון, אז מה יקרה אם...
ואתה צריך להיות יותר מדויק על מה זה ספציפי, כי זה זה אנטישמיות, אבל זה נאצים או נאצים, או הנאצים או של הקתולים, לא יודע, שהם היו פעם אנטישמים. לא יודע, יש המון סוגים של אנטישמיות, נכון? אז
what I want you guys to take from this today, from the discussion into your life, basically, is that whenever they ask you, even at work, when they ask you, and someone comes, even in any situation, or even if your girlfriend comes to you, you're something which contradicts your beliefs, your belief system, and your opinions. So you can either get involved, and you know that she might not even change her belief system because that's what she's been brought up to, or your boss, or someone that you work with. But what you can do is make them think by throwing in a counter argument. Not a counter argument, a counter, let's say, go with the point, but go deep into the point and say, well, what would you do with X, Y, Z? Well, this shows X, Y, Z. And therefore, אתם לא נכנסים למצב של זריקת בוץ אחד על השני, או להיכנס לאש, אתם פתאום נכנסים לאידיאולוג שגורם גם לשני הצדדים לחשוב יותר לעומק. ואז אפשר לנהל ויכוח שהוא גם אונליין, אבל גם בחיים אמיתיים. So I would think this is, even though today's podcast is about online dialogue and maybe הסברה, but I think it goes along, it's קצה קרחון, it goes a lot deeper than this. I think יהיה נחמד מאוד לעשות על זה פודקאסט על זה, ג'וש. כן, אחד זה קצת יותר עומק. It's a very interesting topic. And אני שמחתי להיות כאן. Thanks for coming on today.
A lot. Thanks for having me.
We have to end because you have an amazing lesson coming up.
I'm super excited.
Okay, so have yourself a good week and a peaceful week. We hope things work out for everybody and things go well, especially for our listeners.
And that we'll have peace from the river to the sea.
They have peace from the ocean to ocean.
From ocean to ocean.
From ocean to ocean. So we're sure this will pass by, but it's too early for peace now.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll have peace in the future and sustainable, internal peace. That's what I think most of humanity wants. שלכם, שבוע טוב, מוצלח. Keep learning, keep listening, and thanks for listening. See you, Josh.
See you, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys.